Hi everyone, Chip Paul here. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the endocannabinoid system. So you've heard me talk about this system quite a bit in the past, but I want to give you some information that might be kind of cool and new to you. So it turns out that humans are kind of like a loaded spring, right? And so you can think of this in a bunch of different ways, but you can think of it as like an immune response, or you can think of it like as a kind of fight or flight action, right? So we're like this loaded spring. And there's all different kinds of ways that we get stimulus, right? So let's take fight or flight is a really good example of this. I got to get my hands right because my camera is weird here, but fight or flight is a really good example of this. And so we know that all of us have had a fight or flight response. So we know what that feels like, right? Well, when you have a fight or flight response, how is that managed? Like, what's the difference between somebody dropping something behind you and a lion coming up to eat you? Your body has to understand that and has to have, let's say, feedback mechanisms to control one response, the lion response, which is huge, or control the somebody walked up behind me and dropped me something response, which is smaller. So how does that happen? How do you know, and how do you kind of control that reaction in your body? All the chemicals are the same. The lion chemical event is the same as the somebody walked up behind me chemical event. So how do you know? How do you control that? Well, it turns out it's through hypothalamus hippocampus, and our hypothalamus hippocampus uses the endocannabinoid system to inhibit those type responses. So again, if you didn't have an endocannabinoid system, your responses would be all lion all the time. But in order to have a minor response, we need something called the endocannabinoid system. And the endocannabinoid system will help us control that response. So the same thing works in our immune system. The same thing works in really all of our major systems. And that's how we basically inhibit our natural reactions to things. Okay. So the endocannabinoid, and it is excitatory in some ways. So somebody will get on here and argue, yeah, it excites certain things in certain ways. And it does kind of, but its main function is to calm everything down. So we're built kind of as this loaded spring in a lot of different directions, our immune system, our psychological systems, how we eat, how we sort of crave and need, nutrients. So all of those are loaded springs, and the endocannabinoid system kind of helps us control those responses and moderate the severity of those responses. So pretty cool stuff, right?